Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Clare, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today I'm going to talk about letting go of the need for control and embracing uncertainty. And as I'm reading that title, I'm thinking this could be 2 sessions actually. So I'm going to start by introducing or mentioning, because I don't do that a lot, that where I'm pointing to in these broadcasts is an understanding, a really simple understanding of how the mind works, known as the 3 principles. And I tend not to talk too much about the 3 principles themselves because they can create confusion, I think, and then people try to fit them into a box of what they might already understand about the world, and especially about the world of self-development and trying to fix ourselves or trying to make ourselves feel better. So in brief, the 3 principles are 3 simple truths about all human beings. Something that finally says, oh, there were lots of models and theories about psychology, but here is one simple set of truths that when they work together, they create our human experience. They're known as mind, thought, and consciousness. Probably the latter 2 you kind of get, we are conscious, aware beings. We think, no getting away from those 2 things. Mind is a little more confusing in its label, but when I explain it, you'll probably get it. And it's just aliveness. The aliveness that runs through us. If you've unfortunately had the experience of being with somebody who is no longer alive, you can see that has fallen out of them. And the joy of the 3 principles is that we can talk about some truths about human beings and how they work, and it makes everything a lot simpler. It is not prescriptive. You won't find me telling you what to do in these broadcasts. You will find me explaining how it works. And some of the concepts we've got are just really interesting to me in terms of language and how we talk about ourselves and what we think we want. I did an exploration a couple of months ago about confidence, and that was really interesting. The conclusion being that confidence is a word that we've made up to describe something that perhaps is less complex than we've made it out to be, especially when you bear in mind there's a billion places you can look for the solution if you just search on Google to feel more confident. So today, letting go of the need for control and embracing uncertainty. So you are listening right now to a recovering control freak. And when I say recovering, I do mean that I am not recovered. I think it's a bit like when alcoholics say, I'm an alcoholic despite not having had a drink for 15 years. I'm a bit like that. I'm still would say that I have a propensity towards micromanaging. Interestingly, that never came out particularly in my job, but it did in my home life massively and in my personal life. All through my adult life, I can't ever remember as an adult not being a person who wanted to make sure people behaved the way, did things the way I wanted to do them, drove the way I think they should drive, cook the way I think should cook. And the comedy of this, the biggest comedy of this, is that my fiance is actually an ex-chef and I will still go in the kitchen and just like, well, don't use that sieve for that job, use this different. And why are you doing that like that? Why is that in there with that? Why have you done? I did it last night with tea. We normally have we have pasta, a chickpea pasta actually, and normally we have the pasta and then we put the sauce on, and he stirred the pasta in and says, why have you done that? Why have you put the pasta into the sauce? What's that? Why have you done that? Actually, it was probably a good idea because this chickpea pasta tends to sort of stick together, and then you can't try to put the sauce on, and it's all a bit of a mess. So it was a good idea, really, but I had to like challenge it because I do that. Now, why? And I'm also not a victim. That's the wrong word. I also have an experience of somebody in my life who is trying to control me and Bruce, which is really interesting, and not entertaining, really, just very difficult. So I see it from the other direction, what it's like to have somebody trying to control you. So what is that all about? Control. It's about a feeling. It's about wanting a particular feeling. So, and it comes fundamentally from anywhere in life where we think the outside world is creating our feelings. That is it, really. So if we think the outside world is creating our feelings, we will seek to control the outside world to have a better feeling. So where that really peaked for me was in the run up to burnout, when I was trying to control my new school I'd taken over, my ex-husband who was living next door. I was heavily into online dating, and I was very upset about people not messaging me and wanted that to be controlled as well. I had a ridiculous social life, which I was also like, I used to lie down before I went out and try and visualize the night and how it would, like, I'd do like a meditation, and I'd try and imagine or visualize how my night was going to be amazing, and trying to control my night out even, that's crazy. Well, I feel it's crazy now when I look at it. I didn't then. I thought it was totally sensible. And many other things. So the control of myself, that's been huge over the years. Now, the thing with control is that it comes only from a place of misunderstanding. If we think the outside world is making us feel, so for example, if we feel anxious and it looks like it's because our child is with his father for the weekend and we don't know what's going on, and we don't like the way his father and his father's partner are and what they do and what they're teaching him, then we will try to control that by sending rude WhatsApp messages. Fundamentally. So it's always going to be that way. For me, I felt like I could only feel good enough about myself if the men I was chatting with online all replied and, were nice and replied in a timely fashion, of course, not just replied, but replied in a completely timely fashion. So I was anxious all the time because they weren't doing that. And it ends up being, and I know you've probably heard me say this before, but it ends up being like that game of whack-a-mole where the heads are bobbing up and you're trying to hammer them down and you're not getting anywhere, because that is not how it works. That is not, it is not possible to control everything and keep ourselves feeling okay. We end up like literally hanging on to it with our fingernail ends, trying to squash it down, or trying to keep our hands on the moles and keep them down. So it sounds like a practical thing to do. How do we let go of control? And I know that there are self-development things you can do to help you let go of control. But once you start to see that the outside world isn't creating your feelings anyway, it becomes less, you just become less inclined to try and control the outside world. I would say my life has not shrunk down, but it's simpler because I don't need to do so many things in the outside. I like to do nice things and I enjoy them in the moment, but don't feel like I've got to be plugging lots of things into my life in order to feel okay. I'm quite happy to just go for a walk, or, I'm not so good at sitting about yet. That's something. I don't sit about during the day and read a book. Not really, unless I'm really not feeling very well. So that's something interesting for me to explore. Maybe I should explore that on a live. You can help me out. But I don't. Where was I going with that? So yeah, that need for control falls away. It just falls away when we realise the no outside world is creating our feeling. If that train of thought comes back, we'll rejoin it, shall we? But it's gone for now. And then the other piece of this, I told you, didn't I, that this needed to be 2 sessions, and maybe I'll come back to embracing uncertainty another time too. But what is uncertainty? This is just so cool to see this. This is fab when you see this. Like uncertainty is us not knowing what's going to happen in the future. Well, yay, actually, because you don't. So when we say embrace, what are we embracing when we embrace uncertainty? Well, what we would then embrace would be the present moment, wouldn't it? Because it would be the only thing left. When we, what is uncertainty? Uncertainty is looking in the future and realizing, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. Oh, it's all uncertain. What's going to happen next? Well, that's just the truth, isn't it? There is nothing to be fearful. There is nothing to be not embracing. It's just that whole thing is an illusion, because there's uncertainty. The future's supposed to be uncertain. You're not supposed to know, because there isn't anything there. What really happens when we talk about uncertainty is that we make up 25 scenarios about the future, and we realise that we can't control them all. We can't do anything about them all. They all look awful because our brain is very good at creating awful futures. And that's what we call the fear of uncertainty. We don't mean the fear of uncertainty. We mean the fear of us being certain that we know what's happening in the future. Not the same thing at all. Really not the same thing. So again, letting go of all that, releasing that, being able to embrace uncertainty is about realizing that there's no such thing. If you are in a story about the future, I tell you what, that'll feel awful. So that's great. That's a gift, because that lets you know that you're caught up in a lie, really. If you're feeling terrible, your brain, your head is your thoughts, perhaps not your brain. Your thoughts are full of lies, untruths that you're really focusing on and giving a lot of energy to. That's it, really. It's not any more complicated than that. So when you feel like you're afraid of uncertainty, I guarantee there's some stories about the future in there. So once those stories about the future look less sensible, there's no need to embrace uncertainty, because you will naturally fall into the present moment. Eckhart Tolle says, the moment you notice you're not in the present moment, you will automatically fall into the present moment. And he says it much more eloquently than that, but that's the general ballpark of what he says. And I would have to agree. There is no such thing as uncertainty. It's just our made-up story about the future that we don't like. So let's just embrace the present moment. That seems a healthier thing to do. You see, I did squeeze in both subjects and ran over a little more than I normally like to do. So I hope you found that helpful. Again, I'll remind you that I'm speaking about the 3 principles, 3 simple truths that help you to navigate life with much more ease, have more calm, balance and clarity, and not need to be stressed, overwhelmed and anxious at any point. It's just, we don't need to feel like that. Take care, lots of love, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Clare Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.